Minasan konnichiwa. Welcome to JinJapan Podcast. JinJapan Podcast. Woo! A podcast every 2 days about my travel, life, and findings in Japan. And right now, I'm exploring a lovely little island called Syoudo Shima. Syoudo Islands. The little bean islands. I know it's really famous for beans. Like, really famous for beans. And the stuff you actually make from beans. And that, in Japan, is soy sauce. And as well, there's another little type of bean what, well, we get in the West a lot. But this island, Syoudo Shima, is the only place you can grow olives in Japan. Well, you can grow olives everywhere in Japan, but this is the only place that had successfully achieved olive production. Ooh! So there's a big olive industry on this island. So today's episode, we're going to talk about the local produce of this island. So sit back, grab a tupper, and enjoy today's episode. Otanoshimi. So first up is soy sauce. And on Syoudo Shima, Syoudo Island, there's a museum for soy sauce. Because a very, very famous brand of Japanese soy sauce has a factory here. And it's had a factory a very long time ago. And it's still operating today. But now, it's a bit of a history museum as well. And that is Marukin醤油記念館. What's Marukin soy sauce memorial room. And it's basically a small little museum dedicated to Marukin soy sauce and its production on this island. Because it's been produced on this island for over 100 years, so it's a bit of a history museum. And as well, it teaches you about how you make soy sauce. What if you're in the Western world, you probably have no real clue actually how soy sauce is made. So for me, it was quite good walking around, just learning actually. Making soy sauce is, quite taihen. It's quite difficult. There's a lot what goes into it. So first up, we're going to talk a bit about how do you actually make soy sauce. Ooh. So soy sauce, like in English, soybeans is the main ingredient for soy sauce. And when you steam them, you smash them all up into little bits, like pellet size, and then you mix it with wheat and a little special ingredient called koji. If you want to translate it, it's like rice malt, but it's not just rice malt. It's like a Japanese-style yeast. What's used in a lot of things for fermentation, like miso, and as well soy sauce. It's a fermenting agent. So when it's after mixed with the koji, the beans, the wheat, you heat it up for a bit with high humidity, and you get those good sort of fermentations going. Little yummy bacteria, what are really good for you. They start growing, and then you add it to like some salt water, and you get sort of a liquid. Then you got a liquid, ooh. But now what you do is you got liquid, it's a little bit fermented, is you leave it for a year. You let it ferment for a long period, for a year. And what Syoudo Shima did, what's quite interesting about this factory, what's in Syoudo Shima, it was actually natural fermentation. They didn't need to artificially create a room to heat up all the time. Just the climate of the island was able to actually naturally do that. Maybe in winter they were able to heat it up a little bit, but for most of the year they're able to naturally ferment. This soy sauce makes, it's very cheap production, right? You don't have to count lots and lots of money for fermentation costs. And then when that fermentation's done, it's kind of squeezed it all out, right? Filled it all out, get it into a very nice, lookable, usable liquid. And that's one interesting thing about this factory. There's a little museum you can visit to, but you can also have a little view at the actual factory. What's there today? Well, it's quite interesting. They showed one of these filter rooms, one of these really, really big, like towers. They would lay up soy sauce and just let it filter down for lots of different layers. Think of like vodka when you want to filter that, but this is more than triple filtered. For 10 or 20 filters to get to that soy sauce you see today. And you filter it more, it gets down more, you can even get like white soy sauce. What's even more filtered. But going through the museum was quite nice, because you get to see like how they used to make it. Like we see all the modern day technology, but like 250 years ago, they didn't have that. How do they make it by hand? How do they mix it by hand? They put it in basic rooms, matted it all up, and it still made good soy sauce. So it's quite good all the effort people used to put into things, but now we take it a little bit granted because we've got lovely machinery who can do it all for us. Automation. One nice little thing about this museum is, it's quite cheap actually. It's only 400 yen for entry, and for that you get, well, a gift of some soy sauce. A decent-sized small bottle of soy sauce would probably cost you the same price as the entry ticket to get in, so you basically get in for the price of soy sauce. What's great. And you also get a little discount for the little shop outside. And the shop outside has, well, a specialty of this area, and that is soy sauce ice cream. Yes, soy sauce ice cream. And, well, it's like a mix between caramel and chocolate. And it's really good. Like, really good. So if you definitely come to Syoudo, you gotta check out Marukin醤油記念館. It's mostly in Japanese, but it's just good to go and look around the building as well, because it's still the old style buildings, and, well, enjoying ice cream is great. So next up, we're going to talk about the other thing famous production in this island, and that is olives. One of the biggest produce and, well, industries on this island is olive production. So in the next episode part, we're going to talk about that, so stick around and enjoy. Welcome back to JinJapan Podcast. Now we'll continue our talk about Syoudo, and this second part, we're going to talk about olives. Olive oil. It's extremely famous in this island, as it's one of the main industries on this island. Syoudo was pretty much the only place in Japan which was successful in olive production. So first off, we're going to do a little history lesson about olives in Japan. You don't really think Japan when you think of olives, right? You think of Greece, Portugal, Spain, Italy. But in 1908, Japan had, well, experiments. Let's see if we can produce olives in Japan. Why not? But it didn't go so well. Turned out there's certain bugs in Japan really like eating olives. So a lot of the plantations just completely failed. Like importing foreign trees is also an issue of Japanese soil, Japanese temperature. You have hurricanes, you have typhoons, monsoon season, stuff you wouldn't normally get in, like, Greece. But there was one place where it succeeded, and that, well, was Syoudo, and it became famous in Japan for olive production. Olives produced in Japan. And this olive industry has grown, it's got ups and downs throughout the years, but since the 1990s, it really boomed in this island and kicked off again. Quite a lot of the olives, well, made in this island are actually imported to foreign countries as like a luxury high-brand olive oil. And as well as health goods, there's a big olive industry on this island, and you can tell what is in places sort of local cuisine, local produce, from its omiyage, from its sort of souvenirs. And in Syoudo, well, every single sweet you want to buy a souvenir from this island is pretty much olive flavoured. And there's a lot of olives. And I was lucky enough to visit one of these olive parks. So just close by the previous place I mentioned. In the first part, Marukin醤油記念館, close to that, there's actually an olive koen, an olive park. And it's an olive park with, well, a town station, a Machino-eki. This is probably one of the most famous olive parks on this island, when it's actually in collaboration with Greece. Like olives in Japan, olives in Greece. Let's get along, let's do trade, let's trade how we make olives. And this is the Greece-themed park. So you got, like, statue of the Greece gods. And all about a history of olives as well. And there's a really famous Greek windmill in this place. And if you've never seen a sort of Japanese movie, a very, very famous movie, Major Tankubin, Delivery, which was originally a Studio Ghibli anime, but then got live action, and the live action was filmed, well, the sort of windhouse, or windmill, was featured in that movie. So it's very famous for that, and quite a lot of people will actually rent brooms and pretend to be a witch around this windmill. It's quite funny. Take a picture of that. But there's lots and lots of olives, and there's a nice olive garden you can walk around as well, by the windmill. So there's lots of olive flavoured goods, like olive matcha, olive tea, olive soda, and it's all quite good. Like, olive tea is actually really nice. And there's a lot more olives sort of farms around Syoudo, but there's actually one really interesting olive tree on these islands, what actually travelled from Portugal. I got it wrong. Spain. That's very close, right? Spain, Portugal. From Spain to this island, and that's a 1,000-year-old olive tree. So this island is good for like international exchange. It is Greece, they had a partnership, and this is another partnership they have with Spain. And this is one of the biggest sort of olive production companies on the islands. Olive Mori, so olive forest. And on the west side of Shoroshima, there is just this one tree. And this is the 1,000-year-old olive tree. And when it's massive, like, I think olive trees, they're quite small, they're quite thin, but this is super thick, it's winding around. It's not super tall, but you can kind of see it's a very, very old tree. And it's a nice little area, there's not much around there by the tree, but it's got a perfect little view spot. You can view all of Shoroshima from. And luckily for me today, there was actually a coffee event by this tree. So I went to there today, I did a nice little run in the perfect sunshine. Up a little hill, so it's a little bit hard, but you arrive there, have some nice good coffee, chat with some friends, and then we'll get ready for the run back. So that's going to end up today's episode of JinJapan Podcast. And if you like Shoroshima, please check out the previous episode. I talked about a little bit more about the islands, how you get here. And next up, we'll talk about something I've been doing on this island. And that be in the next episode. Would be themed Gomihiroi Jozu Shoroshima-san. What if you know the very famous anime from this island? You may get a hint. And what else I do? Trash collection. So yeah, I've been doing trash collection on this island, and I did a little event here. So next episode, we'll talk about that, and well, the anime, what's famous from this island. So, subscribe, stick around, and remember to subscribe. It's been a good one. So, minasan, 最後まで聞いてくれてありがとうございました。じゃあね。